want
Let's go live to the Prime Minister in Melbourne.
They also want to make sure that they address their living standards and cost of living. The advantage of solar panels with batteries is that it's doing both. And that is why 60,000 people since July 1 have taken up our batteries rebate policy. It's extraordinary that more than 1,000 batteries are being installed in houses right around Australia each and every workday. And it's not surprising, of course, because for the same reason why an economic unit, a household, has an upfront cost, but then gets the advantage of cheaper bills forever in perpetuity, meaning they are better off once they pay off that capital cost, that upfront cost, they're better off then all the way through. That principle applies to our national economy as well. It's why it makes economic sense for our national economy to move that way, to move towards net zero. Yes, there's an upfront capital cost, but it will benefit and lead to stronger growth as we go forward as a result of that investment. Now, yesterday, of course, we accepted the Climate Change Authority's advice to cut emissions by 62 to 70% by 2035. That was advice based upon the science, based upon the best technology, an ambitious target, but one that is achievable. And we accepted that advice. Today we've had the extraordinary comments by the leader of the Liberal Party who said this: we don't believe in setting targets at all from opposition or from government. So we had essentially the announcement of withdrawal from Paris, because it is Tony Abbott who signed up to the Paris Agreement that requires NDCs, requires nation states to put forward targets every 5 years, which they will seek to achieve to limit climate change. We also then had, of course, after that occurred, Malcolm Turnbull set an agreement going forward, agreed with that, and then it was Scott Morrison, the Morrison government, that established a commitment to net zero by 2050. But in this statement, what it said was a lot about the modern Liberal Party. They're focused on their own jobs and fighting each other. I'm focused on fighting for Australian jobs and fighting for the interests of the future of our children and our grandchildren, fighting for Parker's future here and his younger brother or sister who's on the way. That is what our focus is on. The Liberal Party are too busy fighting each other, too busy looking over their shoulders, too busy arguing with each other to argue for the interests of Australians. And today's bizarre statements by the leader of the Liberal Party, where she walked away from setting any targets as are required by the Paris Agreement, says it all about how their focus is simply on their internals. Well, we'll continue to work with Australians, work with people like Shane and Daniela here, who are making a difference, good for the environment, but what's driving it is that it's good for their bank balance as well. Happy to take questions.
Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition has since clarified that the Opposition would set a target if they came to government.
Well, she made a pretty clear statement. If it says it all, if the Opposition aren't clear from minute to minute, let alone in any considered way. You have in Australia an orderly government that receives proper advice, that acts on science, and on the other hand, you have an opposition that changes its policies from hour to hour, let alone day to day.
Will the government need to commit more funding to hitting the 2035 target than what you unveiled in the press conference yesterday?
No, what we did in the press conference yesterday was outline our funding that we will commit and have committed going forward. We know that this isn't just about government effort. It's also about the private sector effort. The BCA estimate that in order to achieve that target, we'll see between $400 and $500 billion of private sector investment. This will be led by the private sector. The job of the government is to facilitate that investment, just like here, the battery, 30%, a rebate from the Commonwealth, but the investment being made by the household in order to benefit them. And just to give an example of the difference it can make here, in real terms, the dollars of the bills of this household. Before the battery was installed, because they have two cars as well, a hybrid and a fully electric that they plug in here, in 1 month was $304.85. The following month, $59.21. A massive saving, including the powering up of 2 motor vehicles for this family.
Prime Minister, that advice given to your government suggests that over the next decade, average households will have to, the cost of average households will have to fall by about 20% under the renewables rollout. Do you think this is possible under your government's current plan?
Well, there's modelling is out there. The modelling that you've quoted is modelling which is there.
Will the government get rid of the household and small business electricity subsidies? And what is your understanding of when electricity prices will finally start to fall?
Well, the modelling is out there for people to see, and people can examine that, the work that the energy market operator have done. What we'll continue to do, and there's various support is in place, some from state government, some local government, some federal government, some private sector support as well. So what we'll do, we've put out a very clear plan, including industry plans that we put out yesterday. Our net zero plan we've published. We have given a lot of consideration to how we go forward in order to reach that 62 to 70% target. The Climate Change Authority advice we've released for all to see, and we're acting on that advice.
So are those household and small business subsidies here to stay? Can you guarantee that?
Well, they're not all ours.
The federal government ones?
Well, they're not all ours. What we're doing is rolling out the subsidy, for example, a rebate of 30%. We are rolling out, which has made a substantial difference. What we're also doing is providing support for industry plans, including the announcement that we made yesterday of the National Reconstruction Fund, $5 billion. What that is a fund to facilitate private sector investment. That is why we are putting that in place to help industry to transition, because we know that the 3 areas that are required are the energy sector, the electricity sector, industry, but also transport as well.
You talk about the cost of living. Can you guarantee that electricity prices will actually fall? And when can Australians expect that to happen, if it will?
Well, the modelling is out there, and you can see the modelling.
Can you guarantee that
you can see the modelling?
Just on electric vehicles, the report states that half of the light vehicles sold in the next decade will need to be electric vehicles in order to meet the lower end of that target range. What needs to be done to achieve this?
Well, there's been a doubling of the models that are out there already. And we put in place fuel standards, which is already seeing cheaper electric vehicles and greater choice for consumers. We don't have a target. We want that to be left to consumers to make their choices. But we know that consumers are voting with their wallets, and they are investing in electric vehicles. This household here has 1 EV and a hybrid. Why do they do that? Because it means that they don't need to fill up at the petrol pump. It saves them money. And the fact that increased numbers of vehicles are coming online, they're more efficient, they're cheaper. And if you look at what's happening in the global car market, this is happening not just in passenger vehicles, but also in things such as utilities. We're seeing great choice, as well as, of course, in heavy vehicles, buses, etc. We're seeing a change in the nature of the transport sector. The government's job is to facilitate that change. Previously, it was only Australia and Russia were the only countries in the world that didn't have any fuel standards. We fixed that.
Prime Minister, I understand the modelling says prices will fall, but the modelling is based on variables that could change. Can you guarantee that you will get the policy settings right moving forward, that prices will 100% fall for Australians? They're struggling with their bills.
Well, I can guarantee that the cheapest form of new energy is renewables. The cheapest form of new energy is renewables. The modelling is there. It's not government modelling. It's modelling that's been done by the energy market operator. And what we know is that the cheapest form of energy is renewables. We know that that's the case, which is why also the market is operating itself. Now, 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure under the former government. 24 out of 28. And during that time, they had 23 different energy policies announced and didn't land one. What we've done is have one policy, 43% by 2030. We have the safeguard mechanism. We have the capacity investment scheme. We have other investments and policies there to drive through, but we have a consistency. And what business are calling for is certainty. Business needs certainty in order to invest, which is why business has overwhelmingly welcomed the policy announcement that we made yesterday, and why business will be, quite frankly, surprised that the Liberal Party today has questioned whether they will have targets from opposition or from government, have changed positions within from 1 hour to each other.
What will the total cost of net zero be by 2050, Prime Minister? Do you have a total figure?
I was just going to ask on another matter.
Well, it depends what figures you look for. If you look for investment for 2035, the Business Council of Australia saying that the cost will be around about $400 to $500 billion. If you ask for what our policy is, yesterday we announced an additional $8.3 billion of investment, meaning our total investment is $75 billion.
Prime Minister, the Premier, the Victorian Premier, is over in China right now. Do you think she's doing a good job representing Australia?
Well, it's our major trading partner. Probably a good idea that we talk to our major trading partner, because it's about Australian jobs. And I'm sure the Premier is there as the Victorian Premier, talking about jobs here in Victoria that are pretty important. Thanks very much.
So just back on electricity prices, just to clarify, Treasury and Climate Change Authority are assuming electricity prices will fall under the 2035 target. Given you've accepted this advice, do you agree that electricity prices will fall?
Well, the analysis is there from them. What I certainly know is that renewables are the cheapest form of new energy, which is why, in spite of all of the rhetoric of the coalition when they were in government, 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure dates. They didn't start one new coal-fired power station, and they certainly didn't build any nuclear power plants or start any during that time. The truth is that the investment that we have in our plan, which is for renewables, backed by gas, backed by storage, is the way forward for Australia. That's the way that we ensure we maximise economic growth, we maximise jobs, we maximise wages, we protect living standards, and we protect our national economy. Thanks very much.